in accordance with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, which extends the Governor's March 12th, 2020, quote, order suspending certain provisions in the open meeting law GLC 30A paragraph 20 until March 31, 2025, the end of this month, that is. This public meeting is being conducted remotely. It will be recorded and a recording will be found on the Newbury Access YouTube channel. So I will call the meeting to order and ask you please to answer when I call your name, okay? So Christina Hoffman.
Yes, here.
And Sean.
Hello, hi, I'm here.
And Mike.
Here.
And Jim there in the middle.
Present.
Okay, and David Powell is me. And also with us are Sadie, our guide and intern, and Kristen Grubbs, who is the town planner for Newbury. I don't think there are any citizen queries unless we've had some by email. Have we, Sadie?
I haven't gotten anything.
Okay, all right. So I think we can take that as read, okay. How do you want to do this? I would suggest, since Sadie has been the source of our materials, that if you're prepared to, you would simply walk us through the material that we have, and we'll see how we react to it.
Okay, that sounds good. I think that's a good system. So does everyone got the or Christina, you sent the email to all of us with the revised version of the survey, correct?
So Bill and I reviewed and we provided some comments, but we only sent them to Sadie and Kristen because I never am quite sure if I'm allowed to send it to everybody. So we had some suggested revisions to kind of standardize and let folks rate some of the answers. And so we sort of reframed some questions, but just for consideration, I thought it was, a great, there was all the content was there. So it was a great start by David. So thank you again, David, for putting that together.
Okay, just as a point of information, you can share information with all of us, but you cannot share your opinion about it. In other words, you can't endorse it because we're not supposed to make offline, as in, private meetings, but you can share information. So I, in fact, sent out the revised version of the questionnaire to you all without any more comment except the ones that I said that because I was revising it. Okay, so just for your information, there are some people who get very nudgy about it and say you can't talk to anybody else on the committee, and that's not the case. Okay.
Okay, so maybe I can share my screen share the survey draft and we can just go through it all together. Does that sound okay with everyone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good. And I mean, there's the options for the view if you're looking at the Word version to, you can turn off track changes and just have a clean version. That might be an easier one to review.
Okay.
But, maybe we go through and see if other folks had comments as well.
Okay. Yeah, let me see if I can even get this to work.
So Christina, are you saying that what you and Bill sent to Kristen and Sadie is tracked in changes, or is a separate survey doc?
It's tracked in changes.
Okay. Yeah.
but I think we're reviewing it right now with track changes turned off. But
Right,
there are, if
okay,
we wanted to see it, we could.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure I might have missed it, that it was part of the one that was sent out as opposed to a completely different document.
Oh, yeah, nope, nope, it was.
Yep.
Same document.
Great.
Okay, so, I thought, I don't know if you guys saw the, 2000 survey that I sent from the 2000 plan, but they had this nice little blurb at the top, that kind of described what open space actually is and, recreational land and stuff like that. I thought it'd be nice to include a little blurb, maybe the same one, just defining open space. I think that would clarify things for people who have questions. And then does anyone have any thoughts about question 1?
I guess I might just quickly say, not to bring us back to what the intro paragraph is, but we're open space committee. We're talking, and the contribution that open spaces and recreation resources plays. It plays into the first question in the sense that we are also covering recreation, including active recreation, right? Which the rec committee is part of. I didn't know if we need to address that, not worry about it, but I just am calling out that, because one of my thoughts around the first question was, at the very least, kind of maybe grouping things. I realize this is a draft that just is meant to get a list of everything, but maybe kind of categorizing or grouping in a way that might be a little more, when someone is like, yeah, we go to Central Street to the Fields and use, for active recreation, right? And have those there kind of all together. Whether that means they just check that whole category or we want to get down to the granular level here. That was sort of where I was headed with thinking about that first question and how it also related to, in general, the scope of what we're covering.
Okay. I think Bill's
So are you suggesting that we revise that opening paragraph to acknowledge that in addition to open spaces, recreational activities are included due to the open spaces committee's intent to update the town of Newbury open space and recreation plan? Do you want to add?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you're asking the right question. Like, how far do we take it? Do we even need to care? Right. I just didn't know if we were going to step on, sort of like the rec committee to step on their toes by putting in, well, we're covering rec resources. And then in question 1, we're getting right into a bunch of, things that are kind of in their domain as well as ours. So, we may not have to do anything in the first paragraph, but I think we should just, maybe we do, I don't know, but
Well, okay, if I can suggest, we are actually going to meet with the Recreation Committee next week. And I think one of the thoughts that I would have in this regard is they may have a current or recent survey of their own, which we can find out about. But I would be a little worried about sending out too many surveys. Okay. And I would hope that what we might be able to do is, in fact, run this past them next week after our meeting tonight and see whether they have specific concerns which aren't in any way reflected here. If that makes any sense to people.
it seems to me to run, at least give them a heads up, whether you run
Yeah,
by it.
right.
I think if we start to ask them to review the draft, just like we were reviewing right now, we might get kind of stuck in.
Well, they actually have already seen the original draft before I started messing around with it.
Okay.
And did have some reactions, but which were not specific to our questions.
Okay.
Oh,
I had some thoughts about this question. So would it be a possibility that we just don't list any options for people to check off and we just let people come up with the response on their own? That might kind of take away the
Yep.
The conflict, the potential conflict there.
Yeah, maybe just have like 2 or 3 examples, at the end of
Yeah.
the question, just to guide the person answering,
Mhm.
maybe like one form of each, maybe something passive, maybe something active,
Right.
to let them kind of know like the full breadth that they could kind of answer that with.
Mhm.
I-
Yeah. And also I think that the wording of what do you or your family currently or would like to participate in, I think those are maybe 2 separate questions. And I think we should decide if we want to hear about what people are doing now and then make it a separate question, what they would like to be able to do or start doing.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
yeah. I was trying to limit the number of questions we
Yeah.
asked, I think, by putting that in that way. Yes,
I understand.
right.
I think that makes sense because it is kind of keeping an eye on the prize here of like gathering information, which will help with developing the action plan. I do think the distinction of what people currently do and what they might like to do could really drive like a direction, right? Like, oh, well, we have a ton of people who like dog walking and we've got lots of good places for dog walking, but we also have a ton of people who would really like to go skateboarding and there's nowhere to skateboard. So that feels like they're different. The information being pulled seems distinct. So I like that approach.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's Sean here. Going back to the introductory paragraph, can everybody hear me? My voice is a little
Yeah.
raspy. Okay. The open spaces issue, maybe we could just reword that to say open spaces such as recreation areas. And there's actually a list of them in here already. Historic districts, open landscapes, etc. Something like that would cover it without limiting it to recreation. Does that sound
So
reasonable?
you're saying for the introductory paragraph to just say open spaces such as
Right,
instead of
And-
defining it, you mean?
right. Just list 2 and say etc. Because you're going to cover it in the survey later anyways. So say,
Sorry, go
sorry.
ahead.
So I would say something like recreation areas and civic spaces, etc.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I kind of like that approach a little because I like question 10, but I got kind of stuck on that one when I was reviewing this. Like I wanted to word it differently or kind of have that information presented in a different way almost. And I just couldn't kind of find a final resolution in my mind for like why I was just getting hung up on that one. But like what Sean just suggested is kind of taking question 10 and, morphing it into a little bit of the introductory paragraph.
Mike, I had the same reaction with 10 also, sort of. And I guess I wonder if, though, should we in the intro, not to overload it and cover everything, but if you're going to go right into what activities you're talking about, if people forget, I guess they could come back like, oh, I didn't think about the beaches, right? Like, not that, or I didn't think about,
Well, yeah, that's.
something that we don't list out. I guess, I love it.
Well-
Like, go ahead, David.
I was going to suggest that my original idea opening with this question, as I was saying to Sadie earlier today, is to get people to thinking straight away about what they actually do.
Right.
or don't do, as the case may be, because I think that then they begin to understand the scope of open space and recreation. Okay, and I would suggest that we go back to the idea of having some examples, and if the examples are well enough chosen, and there are maybe not just two, but three or four, then you can get into the sort of broad scope of activities from, visiting the beach to walking in the park. And not have an exhaustive list. The exhaustive list essentially came, from other external sources, and I just used it at the time as a prompt for this kind of discussion. So what I'm suggesting is that we do perhaps well, first thing I should say simply is that this draft doesn't take into account any sort of general introduction. It wasn't intended to in full scope, because I don't know that we actually at this point know what we want to say about why we're sending this to you or how you're getting it or whatever it may be. So then moving on to question one, that's why I felt it should happen that way. And I was hoping to move people to a specific connection to their own activities. So they begin to think in terms of how they use stuff and what they think about it, rather than asking a initial rather vague question like, do you think we should have a lot of open space? Which maybe later on you can, after you've talked about what open space is and how it serves. So that just an idea. But I think since this is the opening question, it's very important it gets drafted the right way, so it starts people off on the right kind of foot.
Yeah, I remember,
Yeah, can I-
David, you saying that that was your driver for listing all of these things, was to get people thinking about what they do, because they might not be able to come up with it on their own. So I actually like leaving the list here in question one and leaving the other, please specify as many as you want, and they can list any other things that they would want to. We kind of also have a little bit of standardization that we could do where it's like, oh, we have like hundreds of people that play soccer, and we had, 0 people who responded that mountain bike. So anyway, it also helps to tally up some results to actually have both the best of both worlds, list them off and then let them tell us what else they want to do. But I also agree with making it into like repeating the question. Maybe repeat it so that we get, what do you do? And then the second
Yeah.
question is, what would you like to do? And then we leave that one open-ended, and they can just answer, what do they like to do that maybe isn't on this list, because we already gave them a list to think about.
The other thing I just noticed isn't on here, and it may be because I did maybe tweak something. And once again, is I have on my latest version, or after other outdoor well, okay. Yeah, it's not quite this. After picnicking, I have other outdoor activities, and then organized team sports not listed. Okay. In order to do what Jim raised partly, is for us not to appear to be surveying what recreation guys are responsible for, and also to indicate to people that really isn't a concern of this questionnaire. It really isn't. I think in many ways, because it is a recreation committee issue, and they are going to have a whole section of the final plan anyway.
Yeah, we had proposed to just simplify that by saying other, like, let them tell us what else they want to do. And so
Yeah.
we took out like the multiple other recreation, other other outdoor activities, and we just simplified it to other.
Right. Okay. Okay. Yep.
I'm not saying, I mean, I like the idea of this big list. When I was going through it, I came up with about 20 other things that could go on the list. I think we could have unfortunately, it's one of those things where you could just, it could be a 20-page survey and all you've done is map out all the recreational activities. The reason I like question 10 is it because it gets people to think about open space from a different perspective. Maybe for some people, for example, who don't do a lot of jogging or whatever, their definition may just be looking out their back window and seeing a nice forest, or out on Plum Island, just having this wide open sky overhead with the beautiful sunshine, that sort of thing. Nothing to do with the activity at all, but nevertheless important in terms of open space because, built up buildings take away from skylight, putting in a development in a large farm, kind of wipes out that beautiful farm you were looking out over, over your breakfast nook, that sort of thing.
Yeah, maybe we add in a new item. I love that. It's like enjoying the scenery as like an
Yep.
activity, which kind of covers all those things.
Definitely.
I came up with a couple of things that are like, two things that sort of struck me. Well, three actually. One thing is I noticed that horse riding is particularly important over here in Byfield. That's probably going to end up on the list somehow. I know that because I could see horse hooves out on the trails now. So they're using it for that purpose. So I would add that. Another is just something like nature photography, stargazing, things like that, where, it's like you need a wide open swath of sky to be able to look at, the planets that are arranging themselves out there. But I think the list, unfortunately, is already too long, and I didn't really want to add a whole lot, but I kept thinking, well, where's the ice skating? Where's the sledding? Where's, all the stuff you do in the winter? And the other thing that kind of stuck out is, and this is probably a tricky issue, but I'll bring it up, is what about motorized activities like snowmobiles?
No,
things like that.
absolutely not.
Okay. Okay. So,
I'm
but this is, I'm just saying it's something somebody might consider an activity,
Right.
that they would do in an open space that was in town. Now, maybe they're not allowed to do that. That's fine. But in terms
Well,
of thinking,
no, I'm sorry for that reaction, but I think we need to steer clear of that kind of contentious thing, which is really not, I mean, all of the open spaces that we have, which are under preservation and conservation, restrict any kind of motorized vehicles. And so that's why my reaction is the way it is. Anyway, sorry, Sean.
Yeah.
but-
no, that's okay. I share your sentiment, but I'm just pointing out that the nature of open space is that it is open. When you're talking about farmland, it would not surprise me to see one or more tractors out there going up and down, and people walking back and forth and so on. And I'm sure there are people who abut those areas that take advantage of the fact that they have this great big field right next to their house, and they're going out there and just, enjoying that big open space when it's in the middle of winter or something, or even in the summer, just who knows? I mean, if I lived near Colby's, I'd be very happy to see all those sunflowers out there. It'd be a nice thing to see out my window. That sort of thing, I guess.
Right. Yeah,
I guess what I'm saying is I'm trying to elicit from people just about anything that they would anticipate having open space is a good, let me reword this. what is it about open space in town that you like? So that we can somehow come up with a plan that suits that desire. Now we've got recreation. I understand that's an important part here, but I could see where that would quickly take over because there are a lot of recreation options out there, and we don't talk about things like, well, just the fact that some of these large sections of town are just simply left as natural habitat. That actually is something that was noted in one of the previous surveys. I can't remember which one. I think it was the 2000 one that talked extensively about, especially Scotland Road, where they were saying, hey, look, we just put almost the entirety of Scotland Road under a trust here. So you don't have to worry about a mall going in there, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so there's a question later in the survey that actually does cover that, and Bill and I put in some suggestions to capture just the essence of what you're proposing. So maybe we add a few more things. I like the things that you've added. Maybe we add a few more things to question 1 as options, and then we'll let, if somebody wants to type in snowmobiling as their other option, they can do that, and maybe we move on to question 2. Maybe we repeat
Right.
the question that Sadie, back to your thing. I think we should make this into 2 questions, and the second one, we just won't put the list.
Yeah, and if we're worried about the length of it, we could lump a few things together. You could do organized, you could have a line that just said organized sports, please specify, that covers kind of baseball, basketball, pickleball, softball, kind of all that type of stuff, and water activities that covers, swimming, boating, something else, snow sports, if we want to kind of condense that list a little bit.
Yeah,
Right.
I like that.
Yeah, good idea.
My suggestion would be to have the youth sports.
Yeah.
Again, not because we're focusing on active recreation, particularly team sports. We already talked about it, but put the youth sports together. And I would probably include lacrosse and football, not to lengthen the list, but those are known youth sports teams, programs that use like Central Street. So maybe that's just one more thing.
Yeah, they would, I think, come under organized team sports, and I think the suggestion that Mike just made is
Yep.
the please specify idea, and we could use that in other ways. I think the issue here is simply
Yep.
that if we get into listing, we can probably spend all night
Right.
honing a
Right.
list that we feel sort of directs people into thinking about what they do and what's possible and so on. Whereas I in some ways think perhaps if we can do it on the basis of suggesting things which get people thinking and then leave lots of space for adding, right? That's perhaps the best way to do it.
Great.
What-
So then maybe we leave Sadie to do that, and we can move on to
yes,
question 2.
that's what I'm thinking. Sadie, would it be unfair of us to ask you to look at the difference in terms of trying to be sort of encyclopedic as opposed to trying to come up with selections which are representative of a type? If that does that make sense?
Yeah, like kind of grouping them all together, like how we were just talking about, and
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think that's unreasonable now. Okay, do we want
Sounds
to
great.
move to the next questions or the
Yeah.
next page here? I thought that question 3 and 4 are pretty good as they are.
So I think that we deleted question 2. I guess this is our
Oh.
proposal was to delete question 2, so you'll see that it jumps from 1 to 3. And then this is where we kind of propose that we sort of standardize some of the answers. So I can't remember. Question 2 was,
Recreational opportunities to be added.
yeah, so I think that because the question of 1 is what do you do for recreation? And then question 2, we just decided is what do you want to do in terms of recreation? We kind of already covered that
Right,
in
yeah,
question 1, so we deleted question 2.
Okay.
The key will be in question 1, just making sure we're clear on what they currently use it for versus what they want, right?
Yeah, and I think we decided on this call, we are actually going to take question 1 and repeat it for question 2. And question 1 is going to be, what do you do? And question 2 is, what do you want to do?
Yeah, so the wording in 1 just needs to change. Great.
so we have a question 2. Yes,
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 it will be the second half. It will be the,
right, yeah,
We-
okay, in other
Yeah.
words,
Or we like
eliminate
to-
this current question 2 of adding, and it will be what, yeah, okay, all right. So let's visit 3
okay.
and 4. What are you suggesting here, Christina, that we use the same kind of rating on both, or?
So for this one, we actually modified, it is unique to this one. We just modified instead of daily, regularly, irregularly, and once in a blue moon. We weren't sure like the difference between daily and regularly. And so we just tried to put some words that, and made it approximately that maybe were distinct, had distinct definitions that people didn't have to think about.
Oh, I see, okay,
We weren't sure how to like define irregularly or how to define
Well-
regularly as compared to daily. So we just gave really simple, what we thought were simple options, but obviously open to comment.
I think
I,
yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I think yours is more difficult to answer than mine, but there, there you go.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, no, that's good perspective then. What do others think?
Well, only at the, I would think daily is obvious. Regularly means, oh, well, I go pretty well, every week, couple of times. Irregularly means on a fine day when Uncle Harry comes, when it's my mother's birthday. And once in a blue moon is exactly that. But okay.
Maybe be a little more specific, and that might take some of the so for example, have daily, weekly, monthly, 3 months out of the year, yearly, and I would have a never one, or I don't, or a 0 option.
that's,
So I would add that.
Yeah, I think having the time, like, I think that these are some, like, because someone might, like, we understand your units, David, but I think someone might have different definitions, and I think these are pretty standard.
I
Time,
agree.
measurements of time.
Yeah, except yearly is a bit weird, isn't it?
I don't know. I mean, some people, it's I don't know, summertime only, like people aren't, a lot of people
No,
don't.
but yearly is like your birthday. I mean,
Yeah,
yearly
I mean-
isn't it?
Yeah, like
Seasonally, wait a minute, seasonally, is that what it really, that what you've just said is seasonally, Mike?
Oh yeah, I did say seasonally. I mean, that's one of them.
Yeah, maybe that's better than
But what is-
yearly.
I guess what is that? Is that all seasons? Is that one season? And,
Right. Is that just summer, or
yeah,
is it
yeah.
every season? That's
mean-
what.
Where I'm at in my life right now, I climb a mountain yearly.
We could change it to numbers. We could say like fewer than 10 times a year, between like 10 and 25 times a year, over 30 times a year. I don't know. We could put numbers to it if you you know, if that seemed easier to understand for everybody.
Well, what I'm
Also-
wondering then is we need to ask ourselves, based on whatever people do, what does this tell us?
That's a good question.
Hmm.
What are we trying to understand out of this? But I would say if they say 365 days, that there's a person who uses the resources a lot. Or if they say 0, there's someone whose concern is probably, you know, not as I should say they're not as they're not a client of open space in Newbury. So that would tell you that at least. You know, it's like whether you go 365 days or 300 days. I mean, you know, there comes a point where the weather is going to be involved in this.
I mean, I think the generalness of the daily, weekly, monthly, you know, kind of works. It gives us a understanding,
Yeah.
you know, of what the person that's filling it out, you know, what they're, you know, what they're kind of like. If you're going
Okay,
daily, if you're going daily, then, you know, you're answering the survey, you know, you're using these resources hard, right? If you go yearly, okay, you're just somebody that enjoys it, but it's not like necessarily your thing. Like that's good data to have, right? As
yeah,
you're like reading the
right,
other responses in the survey.
Yeah, and if you
right.
only go yearly, I guess I'd like to know what their answer was on what are the barriers to using it? Because maybe there's a reason that they're not using it, and
Yep.
that's, we really wanted
Mhm.
to hear their opinions.
Right,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
talked to a lot of people that, you know, once the ticks come out, they refuse to walk on a trail.
Yeah.
It blows my mind how petrified they are of it, you know, but that's a different user's kind of experience, and they kind of own the used trails in that like off tick season, you know. So yeah, barriers. That's a good. Yeah.
right.
And obviously swimming isn't, you know, not a lot of people go swimming in the winter.
Right.
But they may swim all summer long. So
Well, let's stick with Christina's suggestion. I think that obviously works for all of us in different ways. And I think it plays best into giving us an idea of who the respondent or respondents are. In other words, are they people who are out there every day, or are they people who, you know, are pretty regular? And that's, I think, a difference. So that's what I would suggest. Okay. So what you're suggesting, Christina, is that we, okay, so you've added some specific places, right? After Old Town Hill, yes. Yeah,
I think our thought behind that was just like to open people's.
Yep.
When they're thinking about places, it's not only about going to Old Town, but going to the beach or going down river to the sandbars. That's also open space. So we just wanted to kind of broaden
Yeah.
people's thought process so they get a little bit more creative if they're going to start listing things.
right, right. Okay. That's Bill, I guess.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I was late.
Right,
I
okay,
got blown off the ocean,
Right.
so I'm here, but a little late.
all right. I seem to lose some people's heads when we get the sample up on my screen. I'm not quite sure why, but anyway. Okay, let's try that. No, it doesn't work.
Are you trying to share something, David?
No, it's when, no, I'm just not seeing everybody who's on, that's all.
Oh,
But that's okay. I recognize Bill's voice suddenly. And now I see him at the bottom of my grouping here. Okay, so we go to 4, yes?
sure. I think this is question 4 is pretty straightforward. Good question. Are we happy with this?
With 4,
Yeah,
I was wondering if we could maybe use a scale, on a scale of 1 to 10. Please rate your comfort or familiarity with accessing blah, blah, blah. 0 being not at all, 10 being very comfortable and familiar. And then in between, people can put 4, 5, 3, whatever.
Okay.
You know, so we can see what the range is in town.
When
yeah,
yeah, I agree. We can do it either way. When we answered these questions, we were also thinking about how we would report it. Like, so we're getting the data, but then in the end, in the appendix, whatever, we're gonna have some type of analysis, right? And so we could either do, you could do a bar graph by, if you want to do it by 1 through 10, or we could do pie chart if we do it this way, or whatever it is, however we want to do it. So that's all. But I think either way, as long as we have a way to analyze and report back, I think that it's good.
Sean, I like that. You haven't seen what we're kind of proposing the same thing on a bunch of following questions, ranking things.
Yeah,
What if we
yeah.
ranked it 1 to 3, 1 being not at all, 2 being somewhat, and 3 being very comfortable?
That's fine. Yeah, I mean, actually, it is a ranking as it is, but I was just thinking that, you know, when people say, you know, I think it's pretty natural for people to get a picture in their head of, you know, what a 7 is to them in terms of comfort versus the word comfortable. My problem actually is having comfortable and then comfortable and familiar. What's the overlap there? Is that, you know?
So we had the same question, Sean, so we reworded that question. You can probably see it on the screen.
Oh, on the screen here. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So you
Also,
removed
very comfortable.
familiarity was removed. Yeah.
Yeah, we removed that.
Oh.
Just please rate your comfort with accessing and using open spaces and trails, and then we could make it a rating, 1, 2, or 3.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that's much simpler. Yep.
Sounds like we're on the same page.
Okay. All right. Very good.
okay. Everyone happy with question 4 as it is at the moment?
Yep.
All right. So number 5. When I first looked at this question, I was like, does this now make it look like we think all of these things are a problem? But I think that it would be good to have like specifics and have data on each of these specific things. What does everyone else think?
I definitely think it's a good idea to get some data. It will help us sort through. And I like the rewording of the question.
Yeah, I feel like it could really help us to, like, if someone is concerned about trails not being maintained, that's like just an action item in our lap now that we have all that data.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to have other issues in case somebody has like some other grievance or something that gives them the opportunity to express that. And whether we put that into the table or we just put that into the text, some other concerns, maybe whatever, we can throw that in the report too.
Yeah, this one, whoops, yes, this one strikes me that it probably should be a table. I did it this way in my redoing because I'll tell you, I was lazy. I mean, it was the easiest way to set out this group and not take a lot of space. But I think a table would be good, and I agree that a rank on this would be good too. So yeah, that's, I think, because what this is getting at, without trying to overly highlight it, is there are concerns about I think you're all aware that Newbury does not have a leash law. However, some of the open spaces that we have do have leash requests, or in other words, because since they're, for example, I'm well aware of this, the trustees actually, that is private property because it belongs to the trustees and they allow the public on it, which means they can have some rules and regulations which they ask you to observe. And one of them is that you keep your dog leashed, particularly in areas close to trails. And so I was trying here to get at some of the rather contentious issues without highlighting them in a way that would make people kind of say, oh, yes, you know, I mean, these people are don't know what they're talking about, or alternatively, really understand my concerns, but because they were busy looking at a number of things. So I think that's good, having a scale from disagree to strongly agree. Yeah.
The word rank, though, 1 to 3 there, we're not ranking also.
Right. Yes, you're right.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Just
So
wanna make
this is like, we would ask people to answer for each of these options. So we're not ranking them. Yeah, that's a good call, Jim. So I think the way the technology of the survey will set it up in a way that will prompt you to put in a number for each of these. And so maybe we don't even call it ranking. We just say, you know, we come up with a different word. That's a really
Agree. Well, yeah.
Rate each one, like rating.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. I
s-
mean, I think you don't have to call it. You can just do,
I don't think you have to do anything. I don't,
right.
just 1, 2, 3, disagree, agree.
It's where
whatever.
it's whether
Yeah.
you, because they're all statements which you can agree or not agree to, right?
Exactly.
So we'll just, we won't define
Yes.
the word
Yeah.
rank. Okay,
Yeah.
that's a good.
Yes. Right. So
Would
just
it be
take
too
out.
much to, I'm sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
would it be too much to imagine, for example, a table where these are all listed on the left and there's space?
Yeah, that's what I'm suggesting. They're put into a table format with
Right.
a you know, a 1, 2, 3 on the right, which says agree strongly, you know, the usual
you check
kind
it
of,
off.
yeah, right.
Okay.
So
Sorry, this is really small, but that's kind of how they set up the 2000 survey. It's
yes, right,
agree,
Okay.
like disagree, strongly agree, and it's 1, 2, 3 across with each
right,
option on the other side. I think that's pretty easy to understand.
right.
We
And
can't see your
also,
screen, Sadie, if you changed it over. We can only see the Word version that is in the Enable edition. But anyway, I think it sounds like the software will figure it out.
Yeah, I think,
Okay.
if I set it up in a particular way, I think I'll make another draft and share it with everyone with all of our changes from tonight. So. Any other thoughts about question 5? Sean, did you want to say something?
I can think of a few more things to add. I don't know if we're interested in adding more. For example, one would be traffic safety. Access to the access is not safe because it's too busy, or traffic is, for example, on Scotland Road, there are a few places that really it's pretty tricky to access the open space there. Another one is overcrowded. There's certain times when certainly the beaches are overcrowded, and that's something that people would either agree or not about. Limited access to restrooms. That might be an issue for people. And then another one I thought of is just general condition of the site, such as too much trash or not safe, something like that.
Well, I think
Um,
that's sort of trails not maintained, isn't that really? In
Okay.
that sort of broadly, uh, why, Sadie, why don't you take on board those two things about safety and toilets
Mhm.
and see if, you know, if you can work that into this without making it too lengthy.
Yeah,
I think that the toilet issue, of course, is yes. Never mind. You could spend all night on that one. Okay. So can we
And,
move on to 6?
One more just popped into mind.
Yes.
I don't know if we want to go here or not. Could maybe add it to parking is an issue, but handicap access is another one, or accessibility for people who are compromised one way or another. Something to think about anyways. They don't go to these things because I've got a bad leg and it's, you know, I have to walk along a wooden plank and they're
Right.
concerned. Something like
Okay.
that.
You want to add that, Sadie, to your
Yeah,
possible
I agree.
list there? Right. Yeah. Access. Right.
I will.
Okay. All
Okay,
right.
thanks. I'm done.
So-
All right.
Okay. So, yeah, okay, I think the new spread out and better readable version of information is good. And again, the scaling, I didn't do any of the scaling stuff because I wasn't, you know, looking at it from the point of view of what level of data we might want to get. But I think 3 is generally good, isn't it?
Yeah, like 3 like options. to
Yeah,
choose.
because
Yeah,
I think any more than 3, unless you really need it, tends to string out to the point you really don't know, you know, unless for some strange reason, and then you've got something very obvious where everybody did 10. But I think
Yeah.
3 is generally very good.
Yeah, well, I think, yeah, what you're talking about is the effect of people bunch toward the middle. So if you have 10 options,
Yeah,
nobody says 0 and nobody says 10. They all say somewhere between 3 and 7.
right.
So there's almost no point in having a 0 or a 10. Yeah. So yeah, I agree with this. Let's keep it simple.
okay.
Okay.
That last option there, links on the Town of Newbury website. I know you just pulled it from the description that we have here from before, but I wonder if that's just a bit wordy. Maybe we can, and I'm not sure if it, I'm not sure how it's really different from the downloadable maps or whatever.
Yeah, that's true. It is downloadable or also links. Yeah, what were you driving at here, David? On the links to the website. I wonder if that is already covered under the 2 downloadable options.
Uh, well, I was thinking that when we originally, some time ago, one of our meetings, we were talking about what currently was on the map that's out there, okay, in terms of Mike's revisions for the map and mapping information. And currently, all of the contact information for Greenbelt, you know, all of the historic New England, etc., is associated with the map. And I was wondering whether we needed to cite the fact or ask them whether they want that information specifically separately available, because I had sort of, I guess in my mind thinking, well, if you go for the map, you'll get that information. Am I making sense? No, maybe?
Okay, yeah.
Christina, I think you.
Yeah,
I wonder if I wonder if we covered it now. I wonder if it's too detailed now that, it sort of got reframed. And maybe that's just covered under downloadable documents with lists and descriptions and downloadable maps. I think maybe we can decide
Yeah.
what's going to be on the maps and what's going to be on the list of descriptions. So maybe we just take that one off, that last one.
yeah, okay, that's, I think, good.
I have a proposition,
Yeah,
maybe controversial, but, for question 6, I think we could maybe say, how should the town, or like, what is the most accessible way for the town to provide information to residents about open space? And then we could kind of combine 6 and 7. Like where, or like we could say like, where do you access your information about open space in Newbury?
So, it's interesting, where do you access your information and where do you want to access your information are two different questions. And in some ways we were thinking that we don't necessarily care how you do it now because you might be doing it, in this certain way and you don't even like that way. So really what we want to know is, how do you want to access it? So I almost feel like there's only one question, which is, how do you want to access it, as opposed to how do you do it now?
That's true.
But I am totally fine. I hear what you're saying. They are very similar questions. So yeah, do you want to take a stab, Sadie, at just sort of combining and refining those two?
Yeah.
Well, one thing I like about 7 is it gets us out of the realm of the town, because I was going to suggest that we add things like news media, just any other place where you might be able to get information like this. So yeah, the conservation organizations is a great idea, because there are people who belong to the trustees that aren't going to go to the Newbury website. They're going to get to that information from the trustees website. They won't be answering this survey though, of course, but
well,
it's a different issue.
yeah, I would tend to agree generally with that point, Sean, and also, again, there's perhaps a little bit of intention here, which I would own up to, and that is, if we get significant and particularly numbers answer to question 6, then we can pressure the town to do that, because currently the town isn't doing that very much. In other words,
Okay.
in other words, if people think the town should be an active source of information, even though they may go to other places as well, I wouldn't like to have the one get lost in the other. So in some ways, that's why I'm thinking that you can add 7 to 6, but it has to be, I think, a very separate question. If in other words, it has to be a 2-question question, which
Yeah.
raises the issue, why not just leave it as 6 and 7?
I think you're right. I think as long as there's valuable data coming from a question, then we should leave it. I don't think it's worth getting rid of questions just to make it shorter. So I think you're right there. I think we could maybe differentiate them a little bit more, and I can work on fine tuning that. But I see what you're saying there.
I had a quick on question 7. So friends and neighbors, or what I would call word of mouth,
Yeah, word of mouth.
was eliminated. is that intentional? And I guess social media, kind of is a form of that, or can be, but I don't know. I guess there's still something about word of mouth, finding out about things.
So the
Oh.
reason, Bill, do you want to remind why we eliminated that? Because
How do
we
you
felt
want-
like as an open space committee, like we
Yep.
can't facilitate that. Like there's nothing we can do about that one. And so we're trying to figure out like what we can do as actions, and that one we
Yep.
didn't feel like we could do anything with.
That makes sense. And I'm now seeing you reworded it also. How do you want to find out, and how do you find out? Yeah. So I guess
Oh, yeah. Sorry. We
no. It makes sense now. I think what you're saying there.
Oh,
We don't want to, right. That's something beyond our domain. So
we could advertise in news media though, if you want to add that one.
yeah. Yep. Posting. Yep.
But okay, so run by me again why you don't want word of mouth kind of things.
So we rephrased this question. How do you want to find out about open space trails and recreation areas in Newbury?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
So if they chose word of mouth, there's nothing the committee can help with on that one.
No,
We
you're
want to
right.
avoid. Yeah.
Yeah.
We want to make it better and easier. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Well, that. Why want as opposed to do?
Because how they find out their information now, like they might not like it or it might not be efficient. And so we don't want to assume that because they get their information from X that they want to continue it. We want to know, how would you like to find out about these things? And maybe, we can also put an open-ended question. We can also put like an other, please specify, in case there's nothing that, resonates with them in terms of how they want to be able to find their information. But I don't know that knowing how they get their information now helps us more than asking the single question of how do you want to find out information, which is really what we're driving towards.
Okay. I think in some ways, the way I had originally phrased it would tell us that people, in fact, let's say, largely rely upon word of mouth, friends, chit chat, whatever, that they don't look for what you might call official information. And that means that the emphasis then, that tells us two things. One is the relative success of communicating to people through official communication, and also, sort of the fact that in Newbury, it tends to be largely social, if that's the case, or that it is in fact mostly through, one or the other. And I think that strengthens our knowledge as to where we put our emphasis.
So if most people said they learned from friends and family, what would we do as a committee? What would be our action item?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're trying to look at it as like maybe somebody's new to town, or, relatively new, maybe doesn't have that network. They're looking to the town website to discover these resources, whatever. We're providing a way to, condense them all together. So you're not, jumping from state website, trustees, Greenbelt, whatever. It's like all right there. I think that's kind of been our mindset.
Yeah, I'm going to defend word of mouth as well, only because there's kind of two ways to look at this. You can look at it as, are we trying to find out how people actually find out the information? or are we trying to find out what they want us to do about how they find the information? And I think it's probably, since we don't know, actually, it's better to find out how they find out. And then we can determine after that whether or not it's something we can do something about. Obviously, if it's word of mouth, it's going to be tricky, although, we could, I guess, talk to more people in town. But do you see I guess what I'm saying is they're kind of two different things we're asking. One is, how do you do it? How do you get to this open space? That'd be good to know. For some people, it's nothing more than, oh, I live right next door to it. That's how I found out. For other people, it's, oh, I belong to this conservation organ. We're visiting everyone in 10 days. So we go to all of them. So that's another possibility. So that's how they do it.
Yeah, because
How we
hasn't-
would
right.
how we
I
would help with that is almost irrelevant because there's
I
very
think-
little.
Just
Go
to
ahead.
reinforce what you're saying, Sean, I think actually, Christina and Bill, question 6 really answers the question 7 you have. See what I'm saying? If people think the town should provide information, then presumably that's the way they want to get it.
Well, I think if it's available in other ways, so like if they identify they want to be able to look on an app or social media, whatever, then we could put energy into it. But I understand what you're saying. So if you were going to put word of mouth, then change question 6 back to the way that you wrote it. What is it?
It's the
how
friends,
do you find-
neighbors, webs, yeah, right.
Yeah, how do you find information? And then we're gonna put down printed documents, printed maps, and they're gonna say, disagree to all those, because we don't do a good job with that now. And then they're gonna say word of mouth. So then we could report, in the report say, most people, the only way they find out, the best way to find out currently is through word of mouth. However, given the options, they would prefer to find out through, these other options. If you wanted to split this up and rework it again. I think
But
that's kind of what you're.
if they've answered question 6 as strongly agree, don't they answer that what you've just said, and that they want that kind of information, even though they may currently find it out from neighbors, buddies, people at work, whatever.
They
That's
strongly
all I'm
agree.
saying.
Yeah, they strongly agree that they get it through word of mouth, but they also strongly agree, I would like to get it through websites or something like that. It's just that we aren't really making any other option available to them at this time except word of mouth, or not as well.
Yeah, I agree with you, David, that I think that 6 and 7, I think that we're back to Sadie saying that 6 and 7 are so overlapping that we should try and revise it a little bit. So let's let Sadie try and put some energy into it and see what she comes up with.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, all right.
Before we hand it off to Sadie, can I just suggest one more thing, which is maybe signage, better signage around the sites, because that could very easily be a way that people find out about this. They're driving by and, oh, look, there's an open space for me to visit. Didn't know that kind of thing.
Yeah, that is an action that like the open space committee could work on with the town, and our partnerships. So
Yeah.
that would be a good one to add into question 6. Increased signage at publicly accessible sites. Yeah.
Whoa. That's, yeah, okay. That's a little problematic as I would see it, because that means that you're, yeah, okay. We only have control over a very small number of the potential number of open space and sites, all those that are in the care of other organizations. It's up to them what they do, right?
Yeah, that's why I said that we could maybe talk to the partners that we have that actually have the open space, you know, every partner that we have. But I agree that it's a steep hill to climb. And maybe, you know, some people are very subtle about their signage because they don't want as much traffic, which I completely get also. So yeah, it's a little bit of a controversial one there, Sean, but I hear what you're saying.
Mm.
So anyway, it's up to everybody if they want to add that as an option. And again, David, it's not something we control, but we could take the action to work with our partners to increase signage. And if it doesn't work because they say no, then okay, but at least it's
Yeah.
a priority that we added to our plan and
And
we put energy.
there is, yeah, and there is one, unfortunately, the one example where we do have control, namely Great Pasture, is singularly the offender because there's nothing there except don't. There are, you know, negative signs, not positive ones, as, you know, it doesn't, and there should be. So I think this is something we can't really deal with in the questionnaire, but I think it is an issue in the whole communications area, right? Okay, shall we move on to 8?
Sounds good. I think this one was a good, important one.
Yeah, I like the adjustments that Bill and Christina added to both 8 and 9. I think they make sense. I like both questions. Thought they should remain, you know.
Yeah, I like the rewording of the questions.
Yeah. All right.
Any comments or edits we want to make on these two?
So I'll be really honest, the one question that I really want to ask people, and so you guys can, you know, shut me down if you want to, but this was worded very specific. Should we dedicate resources, right? That's like man hours, dollars. I think there's another hidden question that I would love to ask, which is, would you be willing to, I'm not going to word this right, just off the bluff, but would you be willing to pay slightly more in taxes in order to conserve open spaces to retain the integrity of the rural feeling of Newbury? That's really also one thing that I want to know.
Well, that's CPA.
Yeah, we asked
That's-
it in the 2007 survey. I can't remember if it was in the 2000 survey or
No.
not,
I
but
don't think it was.
I wondered that if that was something that we should be just throwing out there as a question as well.
Okay. Well, maybe we
Question
get to the
12.
end. We
Yeah,
eliminated question 12 because we felt like it was really complicated.
Oh.
So maybe we replace it with a very simple one, like I just
Okay.
did. Would we
Yeah.
like to spend money?
Oh, okay, yeah, but I'm gonna say, it's there, but we maybe need to reword it, absolutely, yeah,
Okay, okay, good.
right.
I don't know how educated, everybody will be on what the Community Preservation Act is. So I don't know if we need to give a little, if we do ask that question, if you would support something like that, if we have to give a brief,
Yes,
summary of like what that means, an increase on your taxes dedicated to XYZ, without getting into like a whole dissertation on the Community Preservation Act.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we wouldn't even mention the Community Preservation Act. I think we just say, like I just said, like, would you be willing to pay slightly more in your taxes with the goal of using the funds to conserve open space to protect the integrity of,
Yeah.
the rural character of the town, period.
That
Because
makes sense.
I got law. No one knows what 61A is or CPA or anything like that. So I think just like put it in words that everybody knows, which is, do you want to pay a little money to do
Yeah.
it or not? But let's tackle that when we get down to that question.
yeah, okay, all right, so let's focus back on 8 and 9 for a minute.
I thought we liked them, 8 and 9.
Yes, right. I'm gonna say, are we ready to move on from them?
With 9, the point I had was, what I'd like to see there is maybe a ranking. So, just put a number next to the 1, 2, 3. What are those?
Like,
Oh, wait,
with,
let me,
like with the, which question was it before? Number 5, like similar setup.
okay, different kind of ranking. In other words, this is exclusive ranking. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it was 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 options. So rank 1 through 5. Where 1 is being your the one you favor most, 5 being the one you favor least of these 5 examples.
Oh, so
Something like
not just agree, disagree, but like, which one do you think we should spend the most time on?
Like rank in
Right.
order.
Right, rank them in order. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm,
And remove the agree, disagree? Or,
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
that sounds
Yeah,
good.
That's a good
this is
idea.
Are those the
9,
only
right?
5 options, though? I guess I feel like I want to make sure that we really agree that these are the 5 options that are on the table, because I don't feel like we've fully vetted what our options are. We were just sort of looking for suggestions on what people thought maybe we should do.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
Like, yeah, so maybe we have to put some more thought into.
I noticed none is missing. Is that intentional? I could see where someone would rank that. You know what they want. They don't want any open space. I can imagine that would be me, but
Okay, so you're saying to go back to the original wording of question 9, which is what town actions do you favor to preserve open space? We had revised it to say, tell us if you agree if the town should take the following potential actions in the
Oh.
future. And it's on the screen. So it's like, do you agree or disagree with existing town land should be developed for active recreational open space? Do you agree, disagree?
Okay.
So it's kind of similar to your ranking, but it's not like preferential ranking. It's just, do you think we should even do this?
Well, I like the idea of preferential ranking because it does force people to make a decision. Oh, I'd rather have permanent conservation versus passive recreation.
Yeah,
one versus two.
I think ranking is the way to do this.
Otherwise, they could just say, I totally agree with everything. And then what did we learn?
Yeah,
Yeah, no, it's a really, really good thought. Okay, so we'll revise question 9 to make it a preferential ranking. We'll revise the words, the introduction to it and description.
right.
And actually, I know we have 6 options, but we could limit it to 3. Just say, pick 3, rank them 1, 2, 3. Your favorite, your second least, and your least favorite. Something like that. If they want to put 4 and 5, that's fine, but we don't have to tabulate them out that way either. Do you understand what I'm saying there?
Yeah,
It
but
might just-
so then they wouldn't even so we have 5 options and you don't want them to rank them 1 through 5. You only want them to
I mean-
tell us what their top 1 and 2 and 3 are.
The more options you put, the more difficult it becomes to answer the question. And the more scratch outs you're gonna see on the piece of paper. So, oh, I meant to make that 4 then rather than 6. Just
Okay, then if we want to slim the numbers down, let me suggest that that number 3 gets taken out.
I don't think so. I think we should
Well-
give them all 5 options and they should how about they circle their
Well-
top 3 or something, or they just say which are their top 3 that they want to do.
Okay.
Cause that's
That's
my
another-
number 1 answer right there. So
Okay.
I don't want to not even have that
all right, wait a
option.
minute. Okay.
I agree.
Okay, wait, I'm sorry. I'm a little bit of a disadvantage here. It's my own fault. All right. Okay. I was using my own, the original, not the amended. Okay. Because this is the first time I've seen the amended. Okay. Yeah, I just think we should rank them.
Yeah, I agree. I'd say just keep them, five, rank them.
Right.
I think that ranking is a good way to do it too. It'll be easier to report the results that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're saying,
Okay.
literally rank, this is my top number one all the way down to my fifth. It's the least important from my perspective. Just right.
The last two are a little redundant, but I think it's okay. I'd go with it.
Okay.
Do we want to think about adding more options? Are we happy with these options that we have?
Is that a leading question, Sadie?
No, I just wanted to know where our heads were at there, if we're happy with
Well,
these 5 options.
Yeah, my sense is that, what, Sean was saying is true, is that, they're all different when you're a member of the Open Space Committee, but when, Joe Schmo who walks a trail every now and then, I'm not, I think this is the toughest question to give a really sort of informed answer to. Because it does say, some really sort of tough things. Well, I mean, should we really do that as opposed to the other thing? But for some people, it may be very obvious. So I would say let's not try to add unless we think there's some action that's totally missing. And my original list, which is only marginally different from the new one, was culled from 3 or 4 or 5 other questionnaires used by towns. And I'm not saying this because it's me and I did it, but just would remind you that one of the things is that the kinds of questions and to some degree the wording, we need to think about, is stuff that's been accepted by the state. And so I think in some cases we need to be a little careful if we go into wording which the state might find too prescriptive, perhaps is the word. Yeah, I don't think there's that problem here, but just a thought. So can we move on to 10?
Yeah, one other thing, if we were gonna keep these 5, we could put, and I had forgotten my thing, we could do like a fill in the blank and you could rank that. So if somebody feels really strongly about public access to, or whatever, they could write something in and then rank it number 1 if they wanted. That's just one other thought, if we're missing something here. I didn't want to make it too limited.
You could add an open, just say, put a little comment section.
Yeah.
Where people could write whatever they want.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah, you could, yeah, right. Any action not listed here, right? Would that cover, that sort of wording cover it?
Think so.
And that's the crux of the whole thing. What do you public think that we should do?
Yeah,
With regards
exactly.
to open space. So yeah, no, it's a great, I think leaving it open makes sense.
Yeah, great. Can you add that in then, Sadie? You're good, great. Okay. So, where are we? Yes. Okay, number 10 then.
So we kind of tweak this one to just list out some of the contributions that open space open spaces provide to the town and how it contributes to the scenic or rural quality, which I feel like it almost is a little bit of a leading question, but see what you guys think. And then we just listed off those things, David, that you had there. We might have tweaked a couple things and just said,
Yeah,
which are the most important to you? Which ones do you agree with the most?
Another controversial thing. I was wondering what we were trying to glean from this question, like what I feel like most people would agree that all of these do contribute, but is there something that you guys had in mind with this question for what we would find out?
I think that's where my hang up that I was talking about earlier kind of stemmed from, exactly that, Sadie. Like I looked at this question and was like, well, I love all these things and all these things are important to me. So yeah, what do I do with this? You know, and I couldn't get past it when I was reviewing this.
Another ranking might help. I mean, rank your first favorite or the thing, let's see, how's this written? Most important as a 1, least important as a 6, something like that. I don't know how many there are. Actually, I'm gonna look over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there are 7. So rank these 1 to 7.
I think
This is the most important.
yeah.
Whereas,
I would worry, Sean, that if we had to rank them, like I know I would have a lot of ties and would just go to prefer a strong agreement, like a 3, you know, on the ones that are my most important. But I also do wonder at this stage, we're on the 10th question, or, you know, how much more do people have in terms of, you know, focusing on doing that. But that's just my initial reaction.
Or if we
Okay.
do decide to like keep this question, I think maybe it could be good to put at the beginning, because then people have all their energy still,
Right.
and it also could like
Yeah.
get them in the mindset of answer, like thinking about open space and like, oh, I love historic districts, I love lakes, rivers, estuaries, like it would get them in the right attitude to fill out the rest of the survey.
Yeah, that's a great point.
yeah, I like that.
I feel like
actually-
having this question helps. I feel like knowing, I kind of like the ranking, the what's most important, what's least important, but I get it. I feel like they would all be ties, right? For some people, Jim, like you, it almost tells us what is most important to the people. I mean, I guess we're only going to get, we're not going to get that many people to respond to the survey. So we're only going to get a small subsection, but it would be interesting for us to be able to prioritize. I feel like this helps us prioritize, like what kinds of properties do we want to be trying to conserve and preserve, because they're the properties that people are most interested in and are most important to them.
And I guess Christina, then thinking it over again, I could see people being like, yeah, the beaches are most important to me, and some of these others are really not that important. So maybe I'm kind of backtracking a little bit there.
Yeah, one other
Hard
thing
to
we can do is,
prioritize. Oh, sorry.
yeah, it's really tough to prioritize. And again, it may not be as informative because there's maybe 3 top 3. So how about we just say select the top 3 of these that are most important to you?
That's, I think, kind of a good compromise or a good way to achieve what we want to get out of that question.
Yeah.
yeah, actually, I think you're right, that choosing a limited number is the way to find out most about people's mindsets who complete the survey. Yeah.
Yeah, top 3 would be great.
Yeah, I agree.
And just make sure it agrees clearly. So
Yeah.
The only problem I have with that is, what if somebody circles 4 or something like that? You know, what does it mean?
It's always the rebel rouser in the survey.
Sorry.
Right?
I was gonna say,
The reason
you
is I've
always
done a
have
lot
the
of these.
kid who has the smart comment, so that's how you take care of that.
if it's online, you might be able to restrict it to just 3. But
Right.
Yeah, I do feel like this is mostly going to be taken electronically, and so the system will just won't allow you to, you know, the software that we're going to use is just going to be set up in a way that lets you choose 3.
Yeah.
But you're right,
So-
the hand markup people.
Oh,
the
but
wild
wait a
card.
minute, wait, so if we're gonna do choice of 3, how do we cope with other?
So they can
Well-
check it and you would have a text box that lets them
That
put
would
in.
be
Fill it
one
in.
of the 3 options that the
Oh,
person chooses.
yeah,
the
okay,
other.
They can
okay,
explain.
all right, that's all right, as long as the please describe is in there, because if they check other, we don't know what it is, we're, well, can't say that sort of thing online, can you? Anyway, okay, we all sort of pretty happy. Sadie, are you happy with 10 in terms of our intentions?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, because at any point here, if I'm pushing too fast, say, wait a minute, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here.
No,
So,
I have
I
one-
understand. I like the revised question 10.
right.
One more question about 10. Did we decide to move it more towards the front of the survey?
Oh yeah, where would we want it?
Uh,
The new question
Okay,
3, how about we make it, or what about question 1? Although I
to-
kind of want to get them in the groove a little bit before they answer this question, so maybe question after question 2, somewhere.
So it would be
yeah,
this, it would be this question, and then this would be question 2.
No,
And
no, we're gonna repeat question 1 as question 2, but we're asking them, question 1 is what recreational activities do you participate in now to get them thinking? And we give all the lists. Question 2, you're gonna create, and it is what recreational activities do you wish that you could participate in? And we
Right.
don't give them the list. And then there's question 3.
And then question 3 is what question? We're moving question 10 into the question 3 spot.
yeah, right,
Yep.
make 10 into the one that comes right, because that gets, yes, that leads nicely into what is now 3.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay, great, yes.
Make it 30.
Gee, we should go into business, guys.
As long as they don't charge us by the hour. I mean,
Yes, that's true.
or conversely, as long as we're billing by the hour. Anyways,
We're far too expensive for most people, I think, but
Yeah.
anyway.
yeah, I don't,
Okay,
yeah.
So we proposed that question 11 was so similar to question 1 that we proposed eliminating it.
What was it again?
what function does your time outside have for you? Time in nature, recharging, exploring sports, other activity, e.g. fishing, it could have been anything. I guess what that's about, and that's something I picked up from a couple of other places, is it's saying exactly that why is it important to you to do what it is you do in open space or recreation, and it maybe should include other things, or team activities, or I don't know, but is it an important question for us to know the answer to? I think is the obvious question about it. Maybe not.
It seems like an important question now that we're kind of, looking at it with fresh eyes. If our open space and recreation plan wants to talk about why open space is important to the town, we could have some information from folks that tell us why it's important to them. So it seems, so there could be some value in asking the question, but I'm curious what other people think too.
It could be valuable for the whole narrative part of the plan. I think you're right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing I would the first three are more, I'm not sure what word to use there, but tied to
Related.
what,
They're all
what you do,
related.
how you get satisfaction. I think, like you were saying, I think Christina, sports and other activities kind of are already covered in question one when they're specific to that. So maybe it's a lot more like exercise and
Socializing.
yeah, socializing would be a good
Yeah,
one. Something a
okay.
little more of the that nature as opposed to something that kind of hones right in on a specific activity.
Um,
One of the notes I had on that one was health. But I was thinking of it
Right.
actually
Yeah.
in kind of as more of a mental health issue where I think people, or certainly in my own case, feel, less constrained when you're outside in a nice wide open area than when you're, stuck between four buildings in a parking lot somewhere. That sort of thing. But I have no idea how to put that into a reasonable form for this question, or really any question.
Would it be at this point, since we do have the advantage of being able to tweak this, right up until time as to we decide how we're gonna actually send this to people. Sadie, is it, if we take out sports and other activities and use words like exercising, socializing, health, that broadens the range a little bit.
Mm.
Would you feel comfortable sort of using those as a guide and coming up with anything else you think might fit in there? Because I do think one of the things that, as you're talking about the narrative part of eventually the plan, one of the things that's increasingly clear, and you can find this in organizations across the world now, is that the whole encounter with the natural world and the rhythms of the natural world is a very important part of our relationship to one another and to essentially our lives. And if we don't have that, and this is, not an issue we get into, but if we don't have that, as many people in cities don't, it's a real negative. And so the converse is having it is a great positive, which you need to protect and to husband.
Yeah, I agree.
Agree with that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so let's see if we can expand that a little and just take out the specificity.
Mhm.
Okay, so all right.
So we had taken out 12
Yeah,
as well because we felt like there might be some overlap with 8, which was what actions should we be taking to like protect open spaces or something along those lines, but happy to revisit 12. Oh, this is the one that had the CPA and whatnot. So could we,
yes,
is this the
yeah.
one that we revised that says like, should the town, would you be willing to increase your taxes slightly to protect open space?
So wait a minute, where's, I'm having to go back here to, okay,
I should go. I should find your version, David.
well, my original one says, should the town seek new / other sources of funding to acquire open space, and then examples, grants from state, local foundations, individuals, gift of land tax benefits. You know, this was not in any final askable form, frankly. What I guess and this I will declare freely, a personal bias is I would like to get some sense of whether people are aware that there are specific instruments that a town can use to both acquire, maintain and plan for open space. And that Newbury has none of them.
That might just be too much to ask a general survey taker, though. I mean, this is going to this.
Right, okay.
Yeah, how
that's
can we dumb
yeah.
it down? Just how can we dumb it down? Let's make it super simple.
Right.
Yeah, all right, okay.
I mean, until I worked in the industry, I had no idea about some of the grant opportunities or whatever for that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? It's just like a general resident in places like that wasn't even in my purview, just as like, kind of as an example.
Yeah.
Everybody,
Okay,
everybody understands taxes, which is, I think, going back to what Christina said,
yeah, yeah,
are you willing to, financially contribute to, open space and rec facilities, or however we want to kind of phrase something like that.
Because I think that the other question where we ask people what actions should we take, when we say protect land for different reasons, protect it to develop it, protect it for, protect it and develop it for sports was one of the options, protect it for conservation purposes. We don't need to go into the details of how we would do that, but if they say, yes, you should do that, then the onus is on the town to figure out how to do that, whether it's land grants or, that's where like the nuts and bolts, we don't have to talk about them, but they're already covered in the previous question. So I feel like this question could just be that one that people are curious about, which is, would you be willing? Because those other grants and whatnot might not require anybody to pony up money.
Right.
We really
Exactly.
want to ask the question here. Would you be willing?
You know what? I would love to ask question 9 over again, only instead of saying, is this something you'd favor? I think it's question 9. The one where we had the ranking.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And instead say, same options in the same ranking concept. But this time, are you willing to see your taxes go up in order to rank 1 through 6? Which of these things? So, I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, yeah, I really want to preserve, existing town lands for, what's the other one? Where is it? Just to preserve the land. But then the next question is, well, okay, do you want to use town money to buy that land and then find that nobody wants to do that? That would be really useful information, I think.
Yeah, and there really are only 3 options there. That is a really interesting one because they might be willing to increase their taxes to do one of those 3 items, but not do the other 2 items. So because the bottom 2 options are, we shouldn't dedicate resources towards preserving open space and we shouldn't dedicate resources towards active recreation areas. So we wouldn't put those in the next question. We would only pick the top 3 that says, would you be willing to increase your taxes for 1, 2, or 3? And they could either disagree. They could either say yes or no. We could have it be a yes, no question, or we could have it be a rank it as a scale, disagree, agree, or strongly agree, or some other ranking way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, what do I think? I think that any question that is as broad as, would you support or increasing your taxes to X, Y, or Z? In this day and age, and this community in particular, is a red rag to a bull. I really, because you're not indicating all kinds of questions which certainly come to my mind, and I think to a lot of people's minds, and that is how much, who controls it, what does it do? No, I don't want to do any of that, because you're not explaining to me, I think it's just too broad a question, Christina, and I think what I don't, take responsibility for the fact that I know about the CPA and so on, but I think that's what led me to word that way, to essentially say, you see, the CPA and other things of that kind are in the control of the town, of the residents of the town, not given to the taxing authority of the town. Does that make any sense?
Well, yeah,
I mean,
the way question 12 is written now, it's like, why, nobody's going to say, well, of course, if we can get the money from the state and, foundations and gifts and other, I have to confess, I don't know what CPA means, but all of those options have nothing to do with your tax rate going up. Then I'm sure everybody's going to say, sure, let's do it. Why not? Of course, we're spending someone else's money. That's a great idea. But when you ask them, are you willing to spend money to do this? It kind of puts a different light on it. And as you say, it does, some people are just going to say, no, I'm not willing to do that. And to me, that seems like a fair thing for us to find out. What it actually implies is that, well, I guess if we want to do this stuff, we're going to have to find grants from the state, local foundations, and gifts, and whatever the CPA is, land bank, whatever. So I do like the idea of saying, okay, well, nothing's for free here. But if you decide you don't want to fund this stuff, then yeah, there's other ways we can do it, but you don't have to approve those. Those are things we can just go off and do on our own, I would assume. There's nothing preventing us from getting a state grant for open space, is there?
not having this plan completed.
That's what we're doing.
Right.
Right, and
Point.
people are not obligated to give us, but if they give us, a big chunk of land, we could certainly say, okay, well, that's open space now. So we don't need people's attitudes on that. That's kind of already a given. So I guess what I'm saying is, what we're really trying to do is find out what our townspeople's attitudes are about things that would affect them, for example, like having open space is one thing. Most of these questions are trying to discern, just how important an issue that is to them. And this is just another one. Is it so important that you're willing to pay for it? I think that's fair to put in here somehow. I don't know. I understand the wording.
Yeah.
We might have to be careful with it. We don't want to imply that if they said yes on all these wonderful questions, their tax rates are going up. I don't think that's, it's good. There's got to be a big if, if we're asking about, tax money, we have to say, if this stuff is important to you, could you imagine, paying more in your taxes?
Okay, so could we sort of phrase it essentially, say, should the town seek, should the town actively find funding for open space and recreation projects or something like that?
Well, I think that
Which-
Sean, I agree with Sean's comment that if it's free and it doesn't cost anybody any money, of course, they're all going to agree with that and they're all going to say yes. So what we really want to know is not, do you want us to try and protect open space? But how much would you like to us to even consider? And we just have to phrase it properly. Would you consider a small tax increase to do this? Note, by answering this question will not increase your taxes at this time. So I just think, and we can look how other surveys also phrase the question. But I don't think it's worth, I agree with you, Sean. I don't think it's worth asking questions like, do you think we should look for grants to protect open space? I don't know, I guess because I feel like people would likely say yes.
Yeah, of
And we've
course.
already asked that question.
Yeah,
In question
okay,
8. Yeah.
sure.
Question 9.
All right.
My hunch is that since in question 9, we have the two choices at the bottom of what we're showing on the screen now. The town should not dedicate resources, which I know dedicating resources doesn't necessarily mean taxes, a tax increase. But if we would go the CPA route or some other kind of tax type matter, I think that's like a how, and seems like it could be in the open space plan, right? How are we going to fund any initiatives, assuming the survey comes back with, feedback that says, yes, go ahead and acquire and develop more open space and so on. So I guess I would think it's better just to leave it out at this point, everything in question 12. And we can come back to that as a goal and an action item that it gets into the plan, right? Because it's the how we're going to achieve what the survey is telling us. So,
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
In fact, yeah, it doesn't really matter how we get the funding sources. It may be, once we have a plan, we put it in front of people, they could tell us whether they want to pay for it or not then.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so what you're suggesting, Jim, in a sense, is don't ask this question now, ask it actually when we have a draft plan which proposes actions which clearly require money. And then you can legitimately say, are you willing to pay more taxes, beat up the state, go to Uncle Harry or whatever it might be.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so let's leave it out. Simple as that.
So Sadie, I can work with you on, I think we just need to revise the wording of question 9, because now it's like trying to, I just think that the town-owned land should be put into permanent conservation easements. That doesn't answer it. It kind of implies that we've already got existing lands. And what I think we really are trying to evaluate now is
Oh,
should,
no, that's important. Okay. Where, you're wanting to eliminate, no, because that's, okay. Sorry, plot again, on my part. This is directed at the upper and lower greens and any other land like that. There is this, what shall I call it, sort of complacent notion that because they're historic, nothing's going to happen to them. Well, the fact of the matter is, until you put a conservation restriction on them of a permanent kind, anything could happen to them.
then we need to just add another option here that says, because this is like, we're asking what actions should the town of Newbury take in the future? So we need to add another option that says, acquire additional lands for the purpose of open space and recreation.
On question 9 or 12?
9.
Okay.
So that we can eliminate 12, because 12 was going to be, do you want to raise taxes? We decided not to ask that question, because if they tell us in question 9 that, yes, we want you to go acquire land, of course, you're going to need money to acquire land, and that will de facto be answering the question of, we want you to find some money. I guess
Yeah.
I'm not super comfortable with asking the question later about taxes because I feel like having a little bit of a basis in our plan and some feedback from the town right now when their head is in the game because they're in the middle of a survey that's reminding them how important open space is and how often they use it. I feel like it's a stronger case for us to make to the town that we should consider whether it's the CPA that increases our taxes or we just find a way to increase our taxes like without having that mechanism so that we can meet the land acquisition to preserve so that the charge of preserving more open space is something we've already documented that people are willing to do. Anyway, so I don't totally agree yet with not asking the question, but at a minimum, we have to add another option under 9.
Mhm.
I kind of agree with that too, in that, and if we want to do 12, again, wordsmithing is everything, but it would essentially say the town should generate income to acquire open space for blah, blah, blah. And then it would be a scale. Disagree, agree, strongly agree. Simple. I mean, you could just, that's it, just,
Yeah,
and have them rank it.
Mhm.
um, okay.
So Christina, the thing that would be added to, I'm just a little confused still. The thing that would be added to question 9 is an option that would be ranked with all these other options about, would you be willing to pay more in your taxes?
It would be, should the town actively seek to acquire land for the purpose of open space and recreation?
Okay,
Maybe something as general as that. Because it's basically asking, do you want the land to spend money on land? Do you want the town to spend money on land?
okay, so we would get rid of the ranking here.
No, we would just have, let's
A
see.
separate
Yeah,
question.
yeah, you can't, I don't think, yeah, you can't have ranking if you ask that question that way. What I'm wondering is whether something like a combination of what you said and Bill just said should be now a question 10. In other words, should follow question 9. Them having thought about essentially say in with regard to question 9 above, should the town raise funds, or however you want to put it, to achieve the goals in question 9.
Yeah, I still like in looking at question 9 though, now also that I understand the context of the second 2 bullets about the town-owned lands, I guess I
Yeah.
feel like there still is a massive gap. If we're trying to figure out what people want us to do to put in as our goals on the plan, we don't even have a goal of preserving additional land. And I feel like that's what the open space plan committee might be most interested in doing. So we at least have to put that as an option that they can rank.
Okay. So on question 9, add option of
Acquire additional land.
additional lands. Okay. And then we would add a question between coming right after 9 of would you be willing to see a small tax increase to make these things happen in the above question, or something better worded than that?
Yep.
Or raise funds.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think that's the logical place to ask it.
Yeah.
If we're going to ask it at all, I would be comfortable with asking it there. Because I think what Christina's saying is absolutely right, that once they've thought through these things, that question then becomes an ouch. doesn't it? If I've just said yes to all of these things, it's important, then how do we do that? Yeah, put my money where my mouth is.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so 12 is gone.
Can I just point out that
Yes,
if we use like a term like acquire, the town should acquire land for open space use, something like that. That doesn't mean that we're actually paying for it. It could be a gift from somebody.
yeah,
It
Yep.
it could be
Sure.
it could be something else, and that way we're skipping the whole issue of how do we fund that, and still keep it in line with trying to figure out what people's preferences are in terms of where we should put our efforts.
yeah,
That make
because
sense?
actually any land you do acquire, no matter how you acquire it, becomes an expense item of a kind.
Yep.
So it does involve, anywhere from small to larger amounts of money ultimately.
To maintain it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean,
True.
frankly, the Great Meadow is a classic example where the town acquired it and didn't think through what that would mean in terms of upkeep.
Okay.
Nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with passive management.
Right.
I'm serious in that.
No,
Getting it is the hardest part.
yeah,
Rest of eternity to figure out what to do with it. But
Yeah,
getting it is the hardest thing to do.
yeah.
that's
The
true.
most important thing to do.
Right,
And
right.
actually, doing nothing still leaves it open, so that's good too. So now I'm looking at, I think, question 10 here, and it's looking like that question should probably be moved up before the
Well-
ranking question.
Question 10 was moved to be in the third spot, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah,
Okay,
right.
thank you.
Right. yeah.
Okay.
No, you're good.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Radical surgery, yes,
That's a sign we gotta wrap up this meeting.
yes,
I think
right.
so too.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to 13.
okay. I think we could all
Um,
agree with 13. That one looks easy.
You know what? I only had this comment that if someone is doing this on behalf of a household, then this question is sort of irrelevant because they're responding it on behalf of their 6-year-old, their 18-year-old, their 80-year-old mother, and they're 45. So anyway, I did actually have like a little bit of heartburn, but I get that we want to capture some demographic information and I'm all on board. So however we want to come up with that.
Yeah.
I could say, has your household resided in Newbury? Something like that.
I think it's less relevant how long you've been in town. I mean, I think the like 14, 15, 16, 17, those I think are the more valuable information. I mean, maybe you lived in Raleigh for 30 years and you've been in Newbury for one, like, I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know if that is relevant.
Yeah,
It's a good point.
I'm wondering whether more important might be to know whether they live in Plum Island or Old Town or Byfield.
And that was in one of the earlier surveys, the 2000.
I think we should change 13 to what area of Newbury do you live?
Yes.
Like what street?
Yeah,
That might not be
okay.
specific enough.
What street?
No,
Uh,
not
I
what-
don't think,
Yeah,
I
No,
think
no.
that might not be specific enough.
What are the areas? So how would we, are there actual names for kind of like that cover all of Newbury?
Well, people elect, don't they? I mean, people, where you guys live is Old Town. In fact, it's the proper original real Old Town.
Right.
Whereas people who live on the Upper Green will tell you they live in Old Town, which of course is nonsense. But
Well, that's what I was
anyway,
wondering, like, what is the area that by the Upper Green? What is that called? Like Plum Island's obvious, Byfield's obvious, Old Town, I thought was
Well,
fairly
okay, so
contained, but-
Byfield has South Byfield too. So,
What was that, Sean?
there's a South Byfield, which is where Triton and the
Yes,
First Parish Church are, and Governor Dummer.
Or we could like create our own little map that say, do you live in areas 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Like put a map that shows area 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that follows some major streets or something, and then people don't have to get all wound up about. They said it called it South Byfield, and I think it's Byfield. We could
Well,
make.
I mean, it begs the question, why are we asking? Again, does it really matter how many years you've lived in town, or really
I
what
think it-
section of town?
I think it does, because I think there is a sort of question that one asks about the questions, and that is, if we pull out the people who are responding from Plum Island, is there a pattern to some of their responses? Because this kind of stuff we need to know.
I
You're
agree.
We really do.
I agree.
Yeah,
And we want to know, we want to make sure the town is well represented too. We don't want all the answers coming
well,
from.
exactly,
Right.
yes,
Well,
exactly.
Yeah.
Sadie, how complicated you feel the mapping idea that Christina mentioned, which I think is super, except what do you think, Sadie?
So Sadie just stepped away for a second.
Oh, she
Mike,
did.
you're kind of a map master. What do you think about this question? That's
Yes.
something that I don't know if Sadie even has the tools to be able to do it, and I don't want to put the onus on you, but I just want to ask your opinion
What if
about.
you make it a little simpler and you just do it by the voting precinct? You're in precinct 1 or you're in precinct
Oh,
2?
people know, yeah, well, whoa, no, but that's wacko, isn't it?
Well, not really. I mean, I don't live in Byfield. I live in Newbury, but I don't live in Old Town or Plum Island. But I get sent to precinct 2, even though I have an 01951 zip code, not an 01922 zip code.
Well, yeah.
Oh. I'm just
You-
saying, like, does that gives you at least like a 50-50 split, as opposed to a third, or quarters or fifths or however,
No,
or some
I-
arbitrary, designation, you know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah.
if everybody that's registered to vote knows if they're in precinct 1 or precinct 2.
But that doesn't tell me what I think.
But
It doesn't tell me anything very useful, frankly.
But are you assuming that somebody on Plum Island only cares about the beach? Because that's
No,
weird presumption too, you know what I mean? Like,
no, I'm not. But I am suggesting that, oh, how shall I say? That, for example, well, there are all kinds of secondary questions you can pull, where you can use data to tell you or to suggest to you that people who live here tend to be less exposed to, or to be less interested in, and they may not, one always has to be careful when you use that kind of data manipulation, obviously, but I think we have an opportunity to either say, give us your address, okay, but maybe people are not comfortable doing that. And that was the other question I had, is should we ask for people's address simply? And that way we know where they are.
I could think of a fairly easy way to divide the town up, but again, I'm thinking you could say Byfield, or you could say west of Route 1 as one area, east of Route 1 to Plum Island Sound, and then Plum Island. That would pretty much break it into 3 chunks. I actually think I've seen that somewhere else. Not sure where. But then I have another question is, does the town actually have information like this? I would have thought that'd be something they might have actually. How many people are in Newbury? How many people are in Byfield? How many people are out on the island? That kind of thing. I don't know how that would help us, but I'm just thinking if we aligned with that, whatever that distinction is that they use, that might be a good thing to do. I'll
Like
try.
if- Like if the master plan talks about the demographics or the census data is categorized in a certain way and we try and replicate that. Yeah, that's. an
Actually, you know what? I think I do know where I read it. One of the documents is that 165-page planning document, open space planning document, and I think it's in there somewhere where it talks about, and I think it's around issues of like buildable lots or something like that, where they talk about the geology of the place. That kind of breaks the town up into those 3 separate regions. So I think it's actually already been done. If you want, I'll see if I can find it. I have to admit, I haven't gotten through all 165 pages yet, but I'll go back and see what I can find. But I think that's how they do it. They say basically west of Route 1, east of Route 1 to the Sound, and then the island.
Okay. I think that's a good way to organize it.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay, I would, yeah, I would agree.
I mean,
And
you could call it Byfield, Old Town, and Plum Island. I think a lot of people would recognize pretty much what that means.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
Mike
just
just
about
said that
everybody.
he doesn't live in any of those 3 places, so I think that we want
Ah,
to be
okay.
as inclusive as we can, so.
Well, he could skip that question.
We could
Uh,
ask people just what street they live on, like that would, they don't have to give us their number, but they could just give us what is the name of your street, period.
Yeah, but that's much harder work
Yeah.
than the 3 areas, you see.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's try. Sadie, can you try wording Sean's suggestion in a way that sort of does that? I
Yeah.
think that does work.
Okay,
Better, because Old Town is this issue. I mean, this is why I, for a long time, have been fighting this battle of all of the planning documents we have talk about Newbury's 3 villages, and we don't have 3 villages, for heaven's sake. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation for another time.
Okay.
Great.
I'm in the common pasture.
Right.
Mike, we were about to move on.
All right.
We were,
You pulled us
right.
back. All right, so we're eliminating question 13 and we're replacing it with where do you live?
Yep.
How many people in your household? Anybody have an issue with that? I don't actually do, I guess, yeah. It's an interesting thought. Anybody have any comments on 14, 15, or 16, or 17?
Nope.
no.
Oh,
18?
18, I was wondering what this one means. What is group?
How is it going to help us?
Okay.
Um,
Okay, I guess I have to raise my hand and say I was responsible for that. That was just sheerly out of out of interest as to whether most of the, okay, whether in fact the survey does survey families, or is it individuals who are, largely responding. I don't know. It's easy to answer, and I think if we found out the vast majority was individuals, that really tells us perhaps that we're not getting quite the input we might be interested in, because if it's a family, I think you could get some real conversation going, you see, about some of these questions.
You could. I think the individual is interesting, though. I mean, say Bill and I each filled out this survey. We're in the same family, but we might have different answers. We might rank things differently. We might have
Yeah.
agree and disagrees that are different. So I don't know how much this helps us. Like, what would we do with that data? With this
Yep.
answer?
and also I could select individual when I fill out mine, and my wife could select family when she fills hers out. So what does that mean?
Okay, all right, so,
Uh,
I'm happy if you want to can it.
I kind of like the idea of group because there are entities that, I mean, there are businesses and churches and places like that. Obviously Triton, where there are people from out of town. But I assume that we're not looking to include them in the survey here. But then are we? I guess is the question. That term just brought that into my mind there.
Yeah,
mean-
though, that is a good question, actually. Yes, are we sending this to only residents, households, okay? Have we thought about that? No, we probably haven't, have we, Sadie? Or have you?
If people are responding as households or individuals?
No, I'm thinking more of who we sending this to. Are we, for example, sending this to only taxpayers? If so, businesses are taxpayers. I mean, who are we sending it to?
Well, I know that we will be making available a QR code at the town meeting. Besides that, I'm not sure. We
So
will
I
be
think our plan, right? So I actually wrote an announcement. I forgot to send it out. I wrote an announcement that we're going to put on the webpage under news and announcements, and it's going to say like the Open Space Committee is, come complete our survey and click on this link here, which will take you to the survey, or it will take you to a QR code that you can scan with your phone, and you can do it on your phone.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I think also we would send it out to the email notice list for the people who signed up for the Open Space Committee as well. And then, we did talk about like spreading the word about this, having printed
Yeah.
flyers and going to certain places,
posting
and out
it.
the flyers, posting it at the dump, posting it at the, maybe Tender Crop would put it up, like, some of the Colby farms, some of the businesses that says, are you, do you, but I honestly, anyway. So I think that we don't know, David, it's just going to be like, this is part of our outreach strategy that we haven't quite formalized yet.
okay, so then,
Maybe strike that one.
yeah,
I think so.
Um,
I think it's a little bit, there's too many possibilities.
Yeah, the only thing I was thinking is, I mean, the previous space plan, refers to the residents of the town who responded to the survey. It says town residents specifically. We could say, are you a town resident? And they could say yes, or at the other option to answer could be this other bucket, right, of non-residents that are businesses, or maybe since we don't have control over who is going to open up the survey and complete it, and we agreed it's anonymous and we don't want to ask for street addresses and stuff like that. It's just a way to, understand if whoever filled out the survey, assuming they're answering it truthfully, is not a resident, and who are they? They could be a business owner, could be someone else who lives in a bordering town or whatever, who just
Mhm.
happens to answer it.
But I think we're covering that with the other question. Where do you live in Newbury?
Yeah, no, you're right. We are. Okay, then we can just strike it. Stop there.
No, I think though we did agree on our last meeting that we were going to ask that question. Are you a resident of Newbury? If they click yes, then have like the second question drop down. Do you live in, west of Route 1?
Okay,
east
so
of Route 1,
13A.
West Island? Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Good reminder.
But I did check, I'm looking right at the previous the one, and it says, open space plan survey of over 500 town residents. So
yeah, but I suppose if we're going into the world of QR codes, etc., we might expect non-residents.
Right.
But do we seriously expect that non-residents are going to do this?
No.
We
I
don't
mean,
know,
you
but
know,
it was our way of confirming, like, we might decide that we don't want to take into account the interest of non-residents, like in the answers of non-residents. So we wanted to be able to confirm that we can say in our plan that we have this many responses from town residents. And the only way we can say that is if we ask the question, are you a resident? So I think there's value in
well,
having.
haven't we asked as to where you live?
You could add non-resident to that, I suppose.
Right, right.
Well, okay, couldn't you? Question 13. Well, we're gonna do this about where do you live in Newbury? West of Route 1, da, 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 da. And then could we simply add, I don't? Meaning I don't live in Newbury.
So
Yeah.
that's what we just said. We're gonna make question 13, are you a Newbury resident? And they click yes. Then the second question drops down, which says, which part of Newbury do you live in? Or they click no, in which case they don't tell us which part of Newbury they live in. Yep.
Yeah, okay, that's the way to do it, yes. How do you do that on a printed form? Same
You
way,
could
I
just
guess.
say like,
Yeah,
if,
right.
yeah, if no, don't answer the
Yeah,
next question.
right, yeah. Right.
Yep.
Okay, all right, yep, let's put it in there then. And so, are we getting rid of, to do question 18 now?
Yes.
Yes,
I think so, yeah.
yes, okay, that's fine, all right. Okay,
I think 20 is good.
yes, oh, that's mandatory.
Oh,
Okay, whoa. I don't think so. Question double X.
You don't want question, that last one?
I don't know what would the results be. Just numbers?
Summary stats, once, maybe before we put out the final. So in my experience, like when we've done surveys and stuff, people really like to know the results. They're like, well, I filled this survey out, but what did it mean? I never heard anything about it. And some people, not all, but some people, I'm like, yeah, I want to know what the results are. I want to know how I match up with the rest of the town. So if we had some results, we could just send back an email saying,
I would suggest, yeah, well, what I'm suggesting is that we make the results available online.
Yeah.
Not because that creates a task for someone to do, doesn't it? Sending it, if somebody sends in the thing, somebody has to send it back to them. Somebody has to monitor
yeah,
requests. I'm just trying to set up a situation where it's self-actuated. If you would like to see the results of the, there will be a notice when they're, because the results may take quite a long time to get put together.
They will, for sure. They will.
That's, I
Do
would
we-
just like to see the onus taken off the planning department or us, frankly, to send it to them, but the onus to be that we put up that it's available. Does that make sense?
I think I see either way. You could either post it on our website to really create one document. As they enter the database, it's automatically going to create an email list. And then you just do one email and you just copy and paste that one table or one
Link to the website.
yeah, just a link.
Just a
Yeah.
link to the website.
Yeah, it'll just be a generic text that says, click on this link to get your results.
Yeah. I don't think it's a huge lift. It's not like stuffing envelopes or anything like that, that's for sure.
Well, what about the people who don't, you see, I live in the paper world. what about the people who don't do it that way?
You're
would
providing
click
an
no.
email.
They would
Mhm.
click no.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so so there's not an option for them to enter their email address on a written survey?
Well, if you have email, then you should be able to link, right? You're gonna get an email, so you just click the link.
You may have email, but you may not. I mean, you may have accessed the survey just on a piece of paper.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if
you
you,
can write in, you can write it in. You can write your email address in. If yes, write in your email.
Okay,
Simple.
I mean, somebody has to enter all the information anyway, so.
no, but then,
Paper.
same problem, guys. If somebody writes in their email in the written version, right? That they've picked up at Tendercroft Farm, let's say. Now someone has to translate that email into this is what I'm trying to get away from. I'm
But-
trying to say, if you want it, here's how to get it.
It's,
Right.
if you keep punching the paper data sheet, that's just one more thing that needs to be key punched.
Right. I mean, I imagine that we're just gonna be answering the survey several times. I mean, you'll have a pile of paper surveys and you'll just answer the survey 10 times online using that pile of paper surveys, right?
Oh,
Right.
maybe, yeah.
Probably.
And I hadn't thought through how it would get entered in, but you're right. Maybe it is just doing the survey.
Yeah,
For
and
the
then just
paper.
throw them away. You don't need the paper after that, but
Why don't we make the last question, make it that, and maybe it's not even a question, and maybe it's right above the thank you closing at the bottom there. Why don't we just say, you know, the results of this survey will be available on the Town of Newbury website in the future, period. Please provide your email address if you would like to be informed when it's available.
there you
Just,
go.
that's just a courtesy, or notified when it's available.
Yeah, and you know what? That is, yeah, we could encourage folks to sign up for the email list for the open space committee. Again, we could use like the closing.
Yeah,
Right.
okay, right,
Which we, yeah. at the bottom.
yes.
Oh, for the map with the last sentence there, for a map of the walking trails, or if
Yeah,
you would.
well, I just put that in because it was an idea we came up with a long
Yeah,
time ago.
no,
So
it's
if
great.
you like it, we can keep it, and
Yeah,
we
a
can add
little,
another sentence that
that
says,
was the thank you sort of
yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so the only other thing I would ask is, do we want to ask whether there are people who are volunteers for working?
So
Oh.
I didn't want to scare people away. So my opinion was that this is just a data gathering exercise and that we should solicit volunteers as a separate effort from this one, but that's just my opinion.
Maybe just the presence of the survey itself will draw people to check out the webpage and, you know, seek further information.
And the results can take whatever form we want it to. I mean, I don't think it's a good idea to just put up all the raw data. It'd be nice to have some charts and a little bit of text around them saying, looks like. you
Yeah,
know,
right, I think the phrase results of this survey needs to be tweaked a bit, doesn't it?
Maybe we
For
can
the-
talk about that in our next meeting.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep, I agree. I think we just
Yeah.
landed on we're not doing that anymore anyway. So yeah, we're
Yeah.
moving.
right,
and
We're
we may
changing
want,
that.
change the word to report rather than results
or
something.
findings.
or findings. Yeah.
Yeah.
yes, right, yeah. And I
Yeah.
agree with you, Christina, that yes, it's too soon to ask for, you know, people's muscles and help and so on. But I think using, hopefully, a communications process that this starts is the way to do it, right? Because that way maybe you find out people who don't want to attend a session like this one, but would love to get out there, with a rake or whatever and work for a couple of hours, because I think that would help to make this thing a living kind of activity, not just a plan that we put on a shelf. Okay, Sadie, are you still there with us?
I am.
How comfortable do you feel at this point? We've given you a lot, I think, to
Yes,
think about.
I'm keeping track of all of our edits. I will make some changes and we can review again. Maybe at the next meeting. By the next meeting, I'll have like a more finalized draft and we can go over it again.
Right, okay. And I think the other thing is you should obviously feel free to contact any or all of us with something that you need help with, in terms of, you look at it and you think, what the hell does that mean? Even though you wrote it or whatever, because I find I do that. I write something down, then I think, what was I thinking when I was that? Okay.
And Sadie, I
oh,
took a lot of notes too, so I'm happy to help with this.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
right, and do remember that we can share information, but not action on opinions, because sharing information with this kind of thing makes life, much simpler.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, so anything else we need to do, or can we adjourn? Do we need to you talked about minutes, Mike. We can defer reading the minutes to our next physical meeting.
Yeah, I don't think they went out for tonight, so yeah, there's been
Yeah.
no review yet. So I think we'll have the minutes from the February meeting and tonight's meeting for the next meeting to
Right, yeah, I'm
accept.
gonna say the minutes of tonight's meeting are going, I think, going to either be almost one line. We reviewed and revised the questionnaire. I don't know. You've done so well in the past. I leave it up to you as to how you want to handle this in terms of, meeting minutes. Okay, so next meeting date is gonna be whenever it is, the third
Yeah,
Tuesday in, do we have that already?
Is it?
yeah, I think it's the 18th.
The 18th.
We talked about.
Are we all good with that?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. All right,
That's only 2 weeks
And-
from now.
and at 7 o'clock?
Yeah.
Yes,
I think that was correct, yeah.
okay, all right.
And same place? we have-
Yes, we currently, as I understand it from the Booker, and that is we're meeting in the Council on Aging office where we met the last time, because it is regularly booked for us now at 7 o'clock on the third Tuesday of the month, which I think we pretty well agreed last time, made a mark in the ground, and if we need to shift it, we can, but that way we can plan better for what happens. Okay, So I do
Okay,
it.
excellent.
do I hear a move to adjourn?
Yes, move to adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
and so the meeting is adjourned.